box drive, which is a specific feature of Box. And then we'll talk about the comparisons of box drive versus box sync. Okay, so what is box drive? Box drive, according to Box, provides unlimited cloud storage and gives access to all your box files by streaming them directly from your desktop. So basically what it's allowing you to do, it's similar to what we have with our servers with Magellan and how we store our department folder files. Everything that you've saved on your Box account is now available on your desktop. Now, you're probably thinking, how does this differ from Box Sync? If you are familiar with Box Sync, we will go into that. Now, I must say that Box Drive is still in beta. It's been in beta for, I want to say about 2 years, but despite it being in beta, we've been using it. Some of us in IT have been using it for about a year, and for the most part, it is functional. There are just a couple of features that they want to add onto it before they make it available production-wise, but it's still available for download for anybody who wants to use it. So we'll talk about how you can install it and all that stuff. Okay, so box drive versus box sync. So here are the comparisons. So one of the things, I can't really see that well here. So you'll see that it searches, you can search and view all the content in your Box account folder in Box Drive. Now you can do the same thing in Box Sync, but the thing is with Box Sync, you can only view and search the files that you've selected to make available on your computer. Whereas Box Drive, you can search and view everything that you've stored in Box, even those that have been shared with you for collaboration, those that you share with others. You can access them all on your computer. And what's great about that is that it doesn't take up as much space as it does with Box Sync. With Box Sync, it saves a copy of every single file that you make available offline onto your computer, which takes up hard drive space. And so for those of you who have a lot of files in your Box account and you want to make them available so you're not having to log online, you're familiar with having to deal with running out of hard drive space. Whereas that's no longer the case with Box Drive. It only takes up a little bit of space on your computer. Okay. So the other thing is it allows you to upload content to any Box folder, open files from any Box folder. So as I said, as soon as you install Box Drive, it streams everything from the cloud that you stored in your Box account, whereas Box Sync doesn't do that. Now you can also log content for editing. Yes, yeah.
I'm trying to remember exactly the scenario, but you know, like in your computer when you have your My Computer and then you have like Box Drive.
Yes.
It'll show, and then you click Box, and then I go up and I search in like all the folders for, you know, let's just say a file name. And I'll search the file, and sometimes it doesn't seem to grab a file that I know that's in a folder. And then I'll double click in the folder, and there's the file name.
Yes. Yes. So that's one of the things I was going to talk about. So what Greg is asking is saying that when he does a search within his Box folder on his computer, that he'll search for a file he knows is there, but it doesn't show up when he does a search. But if he does a manual search for the file, he's able to see it. So one of the things with Box Drive, but let me ask you, Greg, are you doing the search within the File Explorer, or are you doing the search within the Box search? So it's best to do it within the Box search because that will tag and have more keywords and show up everything. However, there is one thing that it doesn't include in that search. So in order for it to not take up a lot of space on your hard drive, it does cache files, really small amounts, so that when you do open that file, it will open quickly. It takes up about no more than 50% of your available hard drive space. So in order for it to do that, if there are files that you don't access for a very long time, it then makes it unavailable, and it'll show it as a gray X. It doesn't mean the file has been deleted. It just means that that file hasn't been accessed recently. So those files are the ones that it doesn't show up in the search. But when you double click on that file, it then becomes available for you, and then it will show up in the search. Okay. So lock content for editing. So that's available for both Box Drive and BoxSync. So for those of you who do collaborate on files, share files, and you're editing with other people, this is a great feature to have, especially if you prefer to work on that file on your computer rather than in Box Online. Because what will happen is that if you're editing, you can lock that file by right-clicking on the file in your Box folder, select to lock that file, then anyone else who tries to edit that file will not be able to do so. And then you're able to work on it knowing that no one is able to make a change, and then once you're done, you can unlock that file and then someone else can edit it afterwards. The only problem is that you have to remember to go back and unlock that file. Yes.
So if you don't click unlock and I go for the file and it's open, and you go for the file, what'll happen?
So if it's locked,
If I forget, I forgot to lock it.
yeah, then someone can will edit it and it'll make a version. So then you may have different versions of that file and you're not sure which one's the right version. So you'll sort of like having two different copies of that file. Yes.
What I've been doing is there's an option when you're locking it to lock it for a certain amount of time.
Yes.
So you lock it and you make it down so the person can't download it while you're working on it. So you could do it for like 5 minutes, 15 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, and a couple other options.
Yeah, so that option to lock it, a timed lock, is only available online. So if you want to lock the file and then have it unlock automatically for you, go to your online account and then the option there will be there for that specific file. So when you unlock, select the amount of time that you want it locked for, and then it will automatically unlock it. But it's only available for the online feature. And Rose, you had a question?
Yeah, I want to make sure I have all of this straight. Right now, I save everything to BoxSync, which I was told to do in the very beginning. And it shows up in box.com as well. Is this Box Drive replacing BoxSync? I mean, like taking stuff from BoxSync and moving it into Box Drive?
Only if so BoxSync and Box Drive are side-by-side features, and there's some capabilities that BoxSync has that Box Drive doesn't have. And what they're trying to do is, once it gets out of beta, some of the features that Drive doesn't have, like the making files offline, that's only available for BoxSync, it will be incorporated into Box Drive, but it's not there yet. So you can stay with BoxSync. You don't have to move over to Box Drive. This is more of an introduction to so you can see what's available with Box Drive. But I feel personally that Box Drive offers you a greater advantage because it becomes truly unlimited on your computer instead of taking up so much hard drive space with your with BoxSync.
So I might have some files on BoxSync and other files on Box Drive.
No. So
different ways of getting stuff.
exactly. Yeah, so it's one or the other. You can't have both. And so if you decide that you want to have Box Drive, you want to use Box Drive, we'd have to uninstall BoxSync. But we'll go over that in the next slide. Okay, so we were talking about marking content for offline access. So that is only available in BoxSync. That is a feature that they're trying to make available for Box Drive. Once that becomes available, then Box Drive will truly be, I feel, a lot better, more useful than BoxSync, because if you travel, and you may go to areas where there's limited internet access, BoxSync is for you, because you can then make files available offline, access them once you get internet access, then those files get synced up to your Box Cloud account. But with Box Drive, you need constant internet access in order to be able to access your files, because it's streaming constantly. So those are the big differences between BoxSync and Box Drive. Okay. Then you can also create and retrieve shared link. That's both available for Box Drive and BoxSync. And with changing the location of the box folder, that's not that much of an issue. Once you have it installed, it stays in that same folder. So one of the disadvantages of, which is also the same for Box Drive and BoxSync, is that when you look at your BoxSync or Box Drive folder on your computer, you can't tell which folders are shared. So which ones were collaboration folders that were shared with you, because they're all yellow folders or blue folders depending on which operating system you're using. So this is one feature that we've recommended to Box to make available, so then it then becomes truly more like a department folder on our servers. So you can determine which folders you have access to, which folders aren't actually yours, they belong to somebody else, so that you're not mistakenly trying to edit someone else's file that you really don't have rights to. But so that is something that we've mentioned to them, and hopefully will become a feature. So right now, every folder that you see in Box Drive are yellow, and unless you know for sure which folder is yours and which one was shared, you can't really tell unless you look on Box Online. So as I mentioned before, the Box Drive has a cached files that take up to 50% of hard drive space. It may not need to, but it will only take up to 50%, whereas BoxSync will take up as much space as you have available. And then once you run out of space, you can't access those files. Okay, any other questions about that? Okay. So for those of you who may be interested in trying Box Drive and want to try and install it on your own, so here are the steps. And whether we assist you or not, the first thing that you want to do is prepare your computer. So if you have been using BoxSync, you want to make sure that the files that you've dragged in or moved in or created within your Box folder have actually synced up to your Box Online account. So we want to make sure that all your files that you have on your computer in that Box folder is synced. One of the ways, let me show you here. So on the PC, there's the Box Drive folder on your taskbar, and if you right click on it, hold on. Sorry, if you click on it and go to settings, it tells me here what errors I have. So if you've seen any errors, or especially when you start up your computer or you get an update, it'll tell you if you have any errors. So you know that there are some files that haven't synced. And for these, I'm not worried about, because these are files from other people, and they're already on my online account. But if there's files that you've saved on your computer that haven't synced up to your cloud account, you want to make sure that you resolve that problem. And it'll usually tell you what the problem is, removing the characters or something like that. If you're not too sure, just contact the help desk and we'll look into it for you. Yes?
What would be a reason why I do get this message that there are two documents that have not synced?
Mm-hmm.
It's a continual message.
Yes.
What would be the reason that it's not syncing?
Well, for me, the reason why those 3 files aren't syncing is because the file may have been created on a Mac, and the Mac accepts colons, but the PC doesn't. So that's why it won't sync onto my desktop. So the file name needs to be changed to remove that colon, and then it will sync. Now there could be other reasons. It could be a file type that it doesn't recognize. It could be the file is just there might be something wrong with file. Sometimes if you're working with really old file versions, it won't accept it, and so you have to upgrade that to the latest version, Word or something like that, in order for it to do do it. But for the most part, it sort of tells you what it is, and then sometimes it won't sync if you have a folder that you're trying to sync, and then there's a certain file that it's looking for that may have been accidentally put in the trash. And so if you put that file back in, it will then sync. Yeah. Okay, so once you've made sure that your files are synced, then you want to remove Box. So on the PC, it would be just going to the control panels and going to add remove programs and removing it from there. On the Mac, just look for the folder and put it in the trash and then empty the recycle bin. Okay, and then freeing up your hard drive space is the next step. So if you have files that you saved with BoxSync, it's good at this time, once you've uninstalled the program, to then delete those files. And they're just copies. So we synced up those files before we deleted them. So now we've made sure that the copy is online, and then now we've deleted the program, so there's no more syncing. So now we still have the copy of those files taking up hard drive space. So you can go ahead and delete that folder that has all those files, those copies of the files, because you no longer need it. Otherwise, once we then install Box Drive, you're going to have 2 copies, and it's going to take, and you're still going to have space taken up from the old one. Okay, and then you can just go to Box. Yes, Sybil.
So Judy, I'm a little nervous about this. Deleting this BoxSync.
Uh-huh.
So I hear you that you're telling me these are copies,
Mm-hmm.
but I never synced them. I never asked it to sync them.
The best way to check is to go to your Box Online account and make sure that those files are there. Now, I wouldn't. Every time I do it on somebody's computer, I'm checking back and forth, making sure that their files are there. And you don't have to delete those. If you have plenty of hard drive space, you don't have to delete it. Just make sure, keep it there for a couple of weeks, just to have on hand, just to make sure everything's backed up. And then once you have Box Drive installed, you'll see that those files are still there because you just downloaded them or streamed them from the cloud storage. And if you want, contact the help desk. We'll do it with you.
You're not
Yes.
going to get any conflicts with having them still on your computer and then streaming them down from Box Drive? If you
No.
want the same files?
It won't, because it'll create a different folder.
Okay.
Yes, Rose.
You said you could have BoxSync and Box Drive on your computer.
No.
And use both.
No, you can't.
So you have to pick one or the other.
One or the other.
Even, we would pick Box Drive now, even though it's not been thoroughly tested or whatever.
It's as thoroughly tested. We've been testing it for over a year.
Who's sort of recommending that we go with this box?
If I could, I would have had this session last year.
Okay.
But we've been waiting on Box to make it official, and they keep saying, we'll make it official in 3 months, we'll make it official in winter, we'll make it official in the early year, and still they haven't. But we've been in constant communication with them, and they have been using our feedback to improve Box. But the main core of what Box Drive, how it works, is that's the part that really works. It's just the extra added on features that they're trying to tweak to make sure that that's fully functional. Yes.
So I'm not exactly sure which box I've been using then.
Oh, you've been using BoxSync.
Huh?
We have to go through a whole bunch of, are you sure you want to do this beta thing before you?
Oh, okay, so we're all using
No.
BoxSync.
Yeah, so the only time that we've installed Box Drive are for those who've we've recommended it to them, and we've told them about what Box Drive offers. We've told them the downside of not being able to sync offline, and if they said they're okay with that, then we've installed Box Drive for them. Also, we've installed it for people who've had really bad problems with syncing, constant issues with syncing. So then we'll just install Box Drive, replace it with Box Drive, and they haven't had any problems with it.
But I'm happy now. So
Yeah, if you have a desktop, there is no reason why you shouldn't use Box Drive.
How about if you do a lot of work on your iPad out of the office? Sitting in a meeting,
yeah.
pulling down Excel files and stuff.
Mhm.
Would you recommend Box Drive?
Oh, I use Box Drive on my phone. I have Box Drive everywhere. but mostly on the iPad and on your phone, it's just the Box app. So there you can still make what files you want available offline there. So it's more like Box Sync. But yeah, it's still just making it more readily available for you. Okay. Any other questions?
Well, I guess just one last one, dumb one, I guess, but when you say it's streaming, you said it was streaming from your desktop, but is it really streaming from your desktop? Isn't it streaming from the cloud?
Yes, it's streaming to your desktop.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, so how do we use Box Drive? This is pretty much, if you're familiar with Box Sync, and we've installed Box Sync on a lot of computers, you should be using it whether you know it or not, but you're accessing it the same way as if you were using Box Sync. So if you're on a Mac, you're using the Finder to access your box folder. If you're on a PC, you're using File Explorer. Usually it's listed in your favorites, so it's easy to find, and then you can access the files that way. Searching for files, is best to use the search feature within Box. So like I was showing here, when I click on Box here, I can pretty much put anything in, and it will look up everything that's within my Box folder that's related to what I've typed in the search field.
So is that taskbar snippet part of Box Drive or part of Box Sync?
Both. Both. I'm not sure how this shows up pretty well, but this is how it looks for a Mac user. So again, you have the Finder on the left-hand menu. You also have the icon that shows that it's streaming. It's like a cloud icon, so you know that it's connected to the cloud and it's updating as you're accessing your files. On the Mac, it has the box icon at the top. When you click on that, then you have the option to search. And then when you right click on a file, both on the Mac and the PC, then you have more options of what you want to do with that file. Do you want to share that file? Do you want to lock that file? Do you want to rename that file? And so forth. Okay. Any questions about that? Okay, so let's talk about understanding permissions, because this is important, and this also applies to Box Sync as well. So the content you see in your Box Drive folder on your computer follows the same permission rules as it does on the content in your Box folder. So let's say you wanted to try and reorganize your files, your folders. You're tired of seeing all these folders and you want to put some folders into, make them subfolders of a main folder. But you'll notice that if you're not the owner of a folder, that it will revert back to its regular position to be a top folder. So that is the permission structure of Box, which we've commented to Box and provided feedback on this as well, because the permissions is pretty strict for Box. So if you have a folder that you want different permissions set versus another folder, but you still want to add that folder as a subfolder, it won't allow you to, because they have two different permissions. So if you wanted to share something to one group, but the main folder is available to everybody, it won't allow you to do that. So which is why you probably have a lot of folders in your Box account. So one of the things that Box asked us was, what would make you guys use Box Drive more for department storage? And I said the permission and file structure needs to be changed, so it's more similar to what we have on Magellan. Because on Magellan, you can have all these different subfolders and have all these different permissions. I can share one folder with one person, one folder with a different group, and it's still listed as a subfolder and it's more neatly organized. So that is one thing that we've recommended to Box, and hopefully they'll make that available as well. So then this will be truly representative of a network of server storage. Okay, so, and of course you probably already know this, you can drag or move files from your desktop into your box drive folder and a copy will appear in your box.com. So it's constantly syncing, okay? Any questions about the permissions? Okay. So, some common problems. And thank you for those of you who provided questions ahead of time. This helped me to come up with this presentation. So some of the things that came up, I wanted to talk. Yes. Did I drop something?
No, I don't know if you're still recording on the phone.
The recording, the iPhone has an alert.
Oh,
The iPhone.
I hope it's not running out of space.
It's still recording.
Okay.
So yes, I did my Apple ID to the location.
Okay.
Signed in like 12 locations.
Okay, so one of the things that came up was common problems is editing shared files. We talked about this. Using the lock feature, which is great. The other option is using the online editing feature. So if you do want to collaborate real time with someone, you can open up that file within box.com and then using the Office 365 feature, making changes, edits real time. And when that person also opens up that file using Word Online, they'll be able to see what changes you make at that time, and you'll be able to see changes that they make at that time. So that's if you're working on something, you've scheduled to work on a file, but you're not in the same place, you can use that feature to work on that file and know that there won't be any issues with duplicate versions or different versions of that file. You're working on it at the same time. But the other option is the lock feature. Syncing files. So someone mentioned that they're having issues syncing because they have box sync at home and then they have box sync at the office, and they're having issues where the files that they've saved on the office computer are not syncing to their home computer or vice versa. So again, want to mention checking for errors, to seeing what could be causing that, trying to force logging out, resyncing to see if that will resolve the problem, and making sure that files that you're trying to sync haven't been placed in the trash. And if you still have issues, try Box Drive. So organizing files and folders. So this is something that comes up constantly, how best to organize your files. Now we're talking about files that aren't being shared with other people. These are just organizing your files. And honestly, this one's a difficult question to answer because it depends on how you need to use those files and folders. So, but if you want to talk more about this, I would recommend sitting down one-on-one with us, and we'll talk about what you're trying to achieve. So some questions that some other questions that came up. Someone asked about fixity checks, and what fixity checks does, your face page, it checks to make sure that the file that you have stored on your Box account is the original file, and that it hasn't been tampered with, it's not corrupt. This is more for librarians who are always working with archived files and have to store them for a long period of time. So Box does not have fixity checks, but one thing that it does for all its files, once you upload a file, it's scanning to make sure that that file is not corrupt. Once you download the file, it's also scanning to make sure that there's nothing wrong with that file. So, so even though it doesn't offer fixity checks, it does check to make sure that it's not corrupt or it doesn't have any viruses. Okay, someone also asked about removing access. What happens when you remove access? Now, when you remove access, so let's say you're an editor. All editors are able to remove editor up to owner, to remove other people who have editor rights, and also anything lower than that. So when you remove access, remove someone from being able to access that folder, that's all you're doing. You're not deleting anything. That account is still there. They just won't be able to see that that file the next time they try to access it. So there's no problems with if you need to remove, they needed access at that time, and then now they don't, you could just go ahead and remove them. Other people have asked, so what happens when somebody leaves? So do they have access? No, because in order for them to be able to access their Box account, their network account has to be enabled. So they will not be able to access it if their network account is disabled.
What if that person who left was the owner?
Even then.
So if I inherited a bunch of files,
Mm-hmm.
so how do I like take control without, like, you know, if I delete the owner,
Mm-hmm.
am I deleting files?
No, you're not.
Okay.
So as long as you have editor rights, actually you should be co-owner. So what happens when somebody leaves, we get an email that says, and we ask in the form that they filled out, what do you want us to do with their Box
That works
account?
for termination, it doesn't work for transfer. And you think about it, if
Okay.
someone's transferring from a different department
Mm-hmm.
and no longer having access to what you're doing, then that's a different
Yeah,
thing.
and that's something that you need to address to us, that we need to know, because otherwise, if we don't know that person transferred to a different department and we haven't been told what needs to be done with that folder, then they're still going to have access to it. So, but as owner, so what needs to be addressed is before they're transferred, what you want done with that folder, and because we can always quickly go in and change who the owner is of that folder. Doesn't matter, but as long as we know. Okay. So someone also asked, what is the difference between Box Sync versus Google Drive? And they're both cloud storage. The only real difference is that we have an enterprise version that makes it available to us for unlimited storage. Whereas Box Drive, if you have a free version, you get it up to a certain amount. They both offer the same features, being able to share files, store files, and so forth. But Box Sync, as an enterprise, we have access to both Box Sync, we have access to both Box Drive, which offers streaming. Google has now offered Google Stream, which is the equivalent of Box Drive, but it's not available for everybody. It's only available for those who have purchased their enterprise version and for students who use the Google apps. So it's not available for faculty and staff for the Google Stream, but Box Drive is pretty much the same thing. Yes.
So what is the best way to have sharing and collaboration on folders and documents with students? I've had a lot.
Yes, I know that was one of your questions.
Oh, like, you said people sent questions, like, did I don't remember.
Yes, you did.
So I struggled.
I didn't put it on here. How did I lose?
And then, I don't know, some students were like, we're all gonna have Outlook emails next year, so some of this will be fixed. I'm like, I still don't understand.
Yeah, so I think because you had a ticket about that. So the question is, how do you best share files, Box files, with students? And unfortunately, with students, we can't create Box accounts for them that are on our enterprise system, but they can create free Box accounts. And so, and this has come up a lot with faculty who want to collaborate with students. So what we've told them to do is they need to have their students create a Box account using their mail.goucher.edu address, because then you can invite them as collaborators. If they don't have an account and you invite them with that address, it'll say, hey, you've been invited to collaborate, but you need to create an account first. So then they can also create an account that way. Once they have an account and they've gotten that invitation, then they have permission to access that Box file. But it's best when the faculty or staff member creates that folder and then sends the invites versus a student creating a folder and then sharing it out with everybody else, because then you have ownership over it and can share it out to anyone you need to. But that's the best way in Box. Yes.
So Judy, without prejudice, which of these are easier to use?
Oh,
Yeah.
honestly, I think they're both easy to use. I have to be honest, I have 3 cloud storage accounts. I have Dropbox, I have Google Drive, and I have Box Sync. I use Box for work. I use my Dropbox for personal stuff, and then I use my Google Drive for pictures because I can hold a lot of pictures on my Google Drive without taking up that much space. But it's based on how you want to use it, and I feel like for work related stuff, Box Sync is the best option because it's enterprise and you can collaborate with anyone within the community. Whereas Google Drive, I feel is more for personal, especially since we don't offer it here. But you can use it. Doesn't mean that you can't use it. If you've used it before other places and you feel comfortable using it, then use it. But we're giving you the opportunity to use this with unlimited storage and access and being able to collaborate with everybody on campus. Yes.
This is like a paranoid question. Is Magellan going away at some point? Is this all because you're gonna take Magellan away?
No.
Okay.
Nah.
Every time we do
Sorry.
anything about Bob.
Now, I'm sorry, I'll get to you, Greg. So the question was, will Magellan be taken away? And as far as I know, not anytime soon, because there are some, and we'll get into the security part of that, because there are some things that you should not be saving on Box and should be on our servers. Yes.
Maybe I should wait then, because I was going to bring up that you know, when you're sharing, you need to, like, for me, I deal with a lot of vendors, and so when you're sharing your Box folder, be careful what folder directory you're sharing out, because you may say, oh, well, you know, this person needs this folder, but then if everybody else in the group who has access to that folder loads this file and loads that file, all of a sudden that person is going to be able to see those files in that folder. So me personally, whenever I deal with a vendor, I take whatever's just pertinent in that folder, create a brand new folder, copy that detail into that brand new folder, and just share that folder, because I don't know what's going to be in that other folder tomorrow.
Yeah.
So if it's not a Goucher employee, a Goucher staff, if it's only strictly a vendor or something like that, I always just, because I don't know what's going to be there tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's a really good
Yes.
point, because I don't have a facility to figure out who's looking and who's not looking. So it might actually be better to use an outside source with students.
You could, especially since students are using Google. So if you wanted to go that way.
Yeah, that's not totally problem free. I've had, because with the Google, when they create something and share it with me, then when I try to download stuff, it's telling me fail documents. Yeah,
So there may be another option available for that, because now we've all moved to Office 365. Students already have Office 365. There are a lot of Microsoft features that are available for sharing, collaborating with students. And our next Lunch and Learn will be about those features. So if you can attend that, that would be great, because there's it's called Teams and Groups, and it's really amazing what you can do with students, and we've been testing it out with our student workers. And there's also actually a faculty member who's using it for his class, and he gave us permission to show how he's using it, and it's really good.
Is that Office 365?
Yes.
I thought that was just Outlook.
That's part of it.
Well, we'll be talking about that too, the difference between those two.
Will that be true for distance learning students?
Yes. Yeah, they have Office 365, right? Yep. So security. So some of the things that we want to make sure that you don't do it and is save any files. Oh.
Thanks, Judy.
Oh, you're welcome. Okay. Okay, do not save any files that have Social Security numbers on them in Box. Those, and if you try to, we've put a policy in place that will track that and will give us an alert that if you do that, you will be notified. So anything with sensitive information like Social Security numbers should be stored in your department folder on Magellan.
I don't
Yeah.
think you've been notifying me then.
Oh, really?
Really?
Well, that's good to know because
So I
we
didn't
need
know
to make
that.
sure. Also, no medical records. There is a HIPAA compliancy part of Box, but it's another cost, license cost, so which is a bit expensive. So we are not HIPAA compliant for Box. So if you have any medical records, that should be all paper or Magellan based. But we are FERPA compliant. Box comes out of the box FERPA compliant. So if you do have grades that you want to save, you can do that on Box. Okay. Any other questions? So those are the questions that I gathered from the RSVP. But any other questions? Okay. So just to wrap up here, Box Drive allows you to stream. It brings in all the folders that you have saved on your Box account, and then you can stream them on your computer with using up very little space on your hard drive. But if you have a laptop, you travel a lot, and you may have limited internet access, Box Sync is still available for you. You can continue to use that, but there is this option of Box Drive, which gives you unlimited access to any files that you have in your Box account. If you do want to switch over to Box Drive, just let us know. If you need assistance with that, just contact the help desk. And if you have any other questions related to Box Drive, Box Sync, just let us know and we'll be happy to answer you. Yes?
I just want to clarify.
Oh, sorry.
I'm one of those people that lives in a place that has very limited Wi-Fi
Mm-hmm.
internet, and I actually just use a little Wi-Fi thing to get access. So right now, in order for me to get into anything that hasn't been saved to my computer at home,
Mm-hmm.
I have to go into the box.com
Mm-hmm.
and open it up and then download it, and have to turn on the Wi-Fi in order to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Will that be any, I mean, so what I'm wondering is, will that be the, I mean, I'll still have to do that with Box Drive.
Box Sync.
Right, but I mean, with Box Drive, if I were to go to Box Drive, would I then only have access to those files when I'm on the internet?
Correct.
So they wouldn't be saved on my computer?
Correct.
Okay.
You may see them there.
But I would be able to open them?
Yeah.
The sync would be better for you.
Yes.
To stay with Sync at home?
Yeah.
Now, can I do Box Drive at work and Box Sync at home?
Correct.
Oh, that's cool. Okay.
Yeah. And did you have a question? No, Rose, you had a question, didn't you? No?
Golly, I think I did it. Oh, where will this be posted?
So, that's a good question. Once we put everything together, I will send out a message letting you know where you can find it. Okay.
Another really dumb question. When you say streaming, does that just mean it comes down somewhere stored into your computer? Is that what streaming is?
Pretty much is. It's like if you're not really. You could even say streaming from Magellan because you're not actually seeing a cable from. Well, you're seeing your network cable, but it's also wirelessly too. So, but it's just the way for the information to get to their servers to your computer.
Okay.
Pretty much the same thing as download. You know, it's just, I think a lot of us think of streaming as a video, like YouTubing or Netflix. You know, we all think stream.
Stream Netflix.
Right,
Yes.
right, but it's basically downloading.
But it's not, but the difference is that when you're streaming a video from Netflix, unless you download it, it's not on your computer. You just
Right.
have it while you have an internet connection.
That's
And
the
if
big
your
difference.
Comcast thing goes to shit, which it does all the time, then you lose your streaming.
Tell us how you really feel.
So then in that case, Box Sync is better if your Comcast goes to shit all the time.
Exactly.
This is over.
That's actually an IT
Okay, thank you all for attending, and I'll be in touch about where you can find this. No problem.